started. Thanks everybody for coming. Glad you could make it this morning. Nice to have a good group. I think we'll have a good conversation. We've really had some good discussions at all the hearings so far. We were in Logan, Conway Heights in Salt Lake County, and Orem and Ephraim yesterday. Had good conversations at all of those, and excited to be here today. So after the hearing here today, we go to Price and then to Cedar City. And then we finish up with our final hearing back in Orem on Monday. So we have 8 hearings. We may add an online hearing, we'll see, but grateful to have all of your input. We've had, there's really, strong feelings on all sides of this, which is really important. So we appreciate your participation. I will say, honestly, we are in the process of making some adjustments to our language based on feedback in part from the hearings. And that's not just lip service, that's sincerely true. And so we appreciate your feedback. We're looking at ways we can improve the language. It's not perfect. We feel strongly that it's a good step forward for our elections, but we are certainly open to improving it. So we welcome any feedback. We welcome your questions and comments. Yeah, Joni?
Yes. If you change the language, do you have to go through your meetings again?
No, we don't actually. So we filed our initial draft language. We've already made some technical adjustments to it and fixes. We've been working with the Lieutenant Governor's Office and county clerks throughout the state, just because dealing with election timelines, there's so many dates and deadlines, and the processes in place that we want to make sure we don't cause any problems. So we've made some adjustments. We filed new language, but we don't have to redo the hearings on the new language.
Are you talking about the new language that was just presented, or new language from the first time you ran it?
Talking about our new language that was filed for this hearing.
So what has changed? Because we've read through what you filed. What's changed from that?
Well, we haven't posted that yet. We've timed like technical fixes for the county clerks, adjusting the reporting deadlines, and things like that, the changes so far. I'll get into some other changes that may be bigger that we're open to. Part of that is dealing with a plurality issue. It's obviously complicated, but we'll get to it in the details. So as far as the structure here, I think, we have a short deck of about 12 slides that go over the mechanics of the process of the new initiative language. And so as we go through that, if you have questions about the language, feel free to ask those questions. But I would ask please that you save your comments for after the slide deck. We'll have a public comment period on the record. And we had a camera. The law requires us actually to record the hearings and then post that footage. We should give it to the Lieutenant Governor's Office and they post it online. So all comments are on the record. And so when we're done going through the deck, you'll all have 2 minutes to stand up and make a public comment on the record and be heard. So we'll move forward with that. And again, as we go through this deck, feel free to ask any questions you have about the language of the timeline. So we'll get started. Oh, I should say, my name is Taylor Morgan. I work with Count My Vote. This is David May. He's helping out with Count My Vote. And then back on the video, we have Jay Castle. So glad to be here today. Okay. I'm going to actually sit down here if that's okay. Okay, Count My Vote is a nonpartisan, broad-based effort to improve participation in Utah elections. Count My Vote formed years ago due to the trend of low participation in Utah elections. We are a very civically minded, community-minded state, yet our voter participation has declined consistently over the last several decades. So Count My Vote formed to work on improving participation in our elections. Many of you may be familiar with our 2013 initiative. The 2013 initiative originally, the language was for a direct primary election, which is similar to the new language. In 2013, we had gathered about 105,000 signatures statewide, and then we ultimately worked with the legislature to form a compromise called SB 54. SB 54 provides a dual-track access to the primary ballot. It preserved the caucus convention system as a means to getting to the ballot, while also implementing a signature gathering path for the primary election ballot. So I'm on the record saying this, and I'll say it again, I personally really like SB 54. I've been a delegate, I've been very involved at the caucus level as a precinct chair, and I like a lot of things about the caucus convention system. So I like that dual track, I like that option. But the issue is, and the reason we're here today, is that ever since SB 54 was passed, it's been under attack. Every year at the legislative session, it's faced numerous attacks or attempts to undo it legislatively. And then the ongoing lawsuits by the Utah Republican Party have also complicated things. And so, as much as I personally like SB 54, and as much as our group likes SB 54, we've decided that now is the time to put the issue before the voters of Utah and let them decide how they want to nominate their candidates. And so that's where we are, that's why we are where we are here today, is to put this language before the voters of Utah and let them make the final decision. So direct primary elections, the reason why we like direct primary elections when we think about voter participation is that direct primary elections facilitate that greater participation. They improve candidates' access to the ballot. They still preserve the power of political party members to nominate their candidates, but it gives all party voters a voice in that process. They reduce the potential for fraud and election irregularities by having that uniformity statewide, and they remove systematic obstacles to participation. So this is the flow chart of how the new initiative language, currently as it stands right now, how the primary election process would work. So the parties, obviously, as private organizations, will always have the right to hold their caucuses and conventions. Utah's surrounding states, those states all have direct primaries as well, and their political parties, many of them still do have a convention caucus process. There's a lot of very important functions for that process, such as a party could endorse a party candidate that is on the ballot. A party could help a candidate collect signatures to be nominated, pass platform changes, so forth and so on. A lot of important functions for that, and we don't touch the party's right to do that. It is just no longer a path to the state-administered primary election ballot. So now, under the new language, we have established a threshold for a candidate to qualify for the primary election ballot is to gather at least 1% of signatures from at least 1% of the registered party members in that jurisdiction that they're seeking to represent. And so the 1% is significantly lower than the current thresholds under SB 54. Under SB 54, the thresholds, for example, statewide, it's 28,000 signatures. For congressional, 7,000. For a state senate, 2,000. And for a state house, 1,000. Yeah?
So I'm looking and stopping as you go on the slide. So you're saying the caucus and convention, party endorsement, yeah, they can have a party endorsement, but really that wouldn't have anything to do with putting a candidate on the ballot for a party?
Correct.
So basically you're taking the caucus and convention system and getting rid of it. Well, you're not going to get rid of the party, you can still do it. But that wouldn't be valid and legally binding for the election, the ballot.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, correct. Is that any other questions on that part of it? Is that clear? Okay.
So your method, this other method, will still put an R behind somebody's name as if the party supports them.
Well, yes, because they're being nominated by their party voters.
Well, they're
Right, that's the
not through their
requirement.
system that they choose though, right?
Well, so so for example, if I'm running as a Republican candidate, to be nominated for that Republican primary ballot, I need to be nominated by at least 1% of my fellow Republican voters in the jurisdiction I'm running to represent. So I'm being nominated by my fellow party voters. Yeah.
But so people signing the petitions, there's no proof they're a Republican supporting you being a Republican, like anybody.
No, the signatures only count when they're verified by the county clerk or the lieutenant governor's office as a eligible registered party voter.
you talking about the 1%, or are you talking about the ballot initiative?
The 1%.
Yeah. The signatures don't count unless indeed they are a registered party voter, and the signatures are verified by the county clerks and the lieutenant governor's office.
When you say registered party voter, are you talking about you have to be one of the two main parties, you can't be an independent?
Right, so
That
yeah,
independent's not really a party.
if you're unaffiliated, if you're not affiliated with the party, you cannot sign to nominate a party candidate.
Well, doesn't that seem kind of stupid too?
Well, so that was in SB 54. A big piece of SB 54 was the language allowed unaffiliated voters to sign to nominate party candidates. And in the lawsuit, that part was actually struck by the federal judges being unconstitutional because it forced an association upon a private organization on the party. And so we've kept with that because that was the decision in the courts. And so under, in this new model, in this language, again, because the court has ruled, only registered party voters are eligible to sign to nominate a candidate for their party.
So right now, without this change, a party, the Republican Party can pick their candidate and have access to the ballot, and the Democrats can do the same, and any registered party can. But we also have legislation that somebody without a party can go forward and already collect signatures and get on the ballot too.
To the general ballot.
Yeah. So
We don't touch that. Because we're opening, the direct primary election, what it does is it opens up the party primary election to all voters in that party. That's the direct primary election. We don't touch the party's ability, of course, to have an open or closed primary. That's always up to the parties. And you have to be a registered, affiliated voter with that party in order to nominate a candidate for that party and then participate in that party's primary if it's closed. So, again, the signature thresholds under SB 54 are very, very high. In fact, they would be unconstitutionally high if it weren't for the other way to get on the ballot right now under the caucus convention system. So again, our surrounding states have direct primary elections, and their signature thresholds are anywhere from 0.5% to about 3%. So at 1%, the idea there is that there should be a seriousness test for candidates, that a candidate should demonstrate a sufficient level of support among their fellow party voters, but we don't want to put in a barrier that's too high that would be an obstacle to any candidate getting on the ballot. So that's the 1% number. And I have some samples of what that looks like in different districts and statewide, and so we'll talk about that a little more. Okay, so 1% qualifies you to be on the party's primary election ballot. And because with that increased access to the ballot for candidates, we could see more candidates on a primary election ballot. And so because of that, our language now includes provisions to deal with a plurality on the ballot. And so that language right now, and this is something we're taking a close look at, ways we can improve this. But the way it is right now is that if no one candidate on the primary election ballot receives 35% or more of the vote, then the top two vote getters in the primary advance to an instant runoff election, a by-mail runoff election. And then whoever wins the majority vote, 50% or whatever the majority is in that runoff between the two, that person becomes the party's nominee and advances to the general election.
So if we have, right now, if you go through the caucus and convention system, we have our own levels of what a person needs to get the endorsement. It's like 60, 65, depending on the election. And so you're saying that somebody could become a state or federal candidate with 35% of the vote, and then our state would have to run an additional election that we don't have to run now, and it would be paid for by taxpayer money to do a runoff.
Well, the only time we do a runoff is if no one gets 35% of the vote.
That
So if somebody wins,
very likely with 12 or 16 candidates like we've had.
So if someone wins 35% or more, for example, in the 3rd district special election, we had 3 candidates on the primary.
And one candidate received 42% and won, and that person became the party's nominee for the general.
So you're saying that somebody with 42% of the vote of their party can be their party's winner of an election without ever
Right.
having a majority?
Well, and that's how it is now on the general ballot. There's always more than just 2 candidates on the general election ballot. And most winners on the general ballot win with, between 40-45%. So winning with less than 50% is very common. It's not unusual.
Not with,
So,
the parties can't get the endorsement without 50%.
How does this affect the non-party election?
it doesn't.
It doesn't at all?
Yeah, we only touch partisan primary elections. So municipal elections that already have a direct primary in place, that aren't partisan, we don't touch those. That language all remains the same. Yeah. Question?
Okay, there's a name for this, and I can't remember the name of it, but other states have dabbled in this without any serious consideration. But
Yeah.
there's something else, your first,
Ranked choice voting?
ranked choice voting.
Yeah, that's something we're taking a really hard look at.
Because she's talking about the cost of having a runoff. You have ranked choice voting.
Yeah, and we've looked at that. We talked to the Lieutenant Governor's office at length about that. Well, at least we were told that there's a huge price tag with that because the system for that in Utah currently isn't in place. And we're talking tens of millions of dollars. We have a fiscal estimate for this language, which we'll get to, which is significantly less than what that would be potentially.
Doesn't it sound like an app that some high school kid could write?
Probably, yeah.
But we're going to get into tens of millions of dollars.
I know. It's something worth looking at, but where we are right now, it is not part of this language, but, it's certainly something worth looking at. So, yeah. No other states use that yet. I think maybe one.
Disgusting.
I'm not sure, but,
And there's a reason.
yeah, I don't know all the details,
The reason
frankly.
is only a candidate only has to run for second place. When people run on ranked choice, all they do is they say, you can vote whoever you want to in this election. Who's your favorite person? And then they find out who your favorite person is. They say, go ahead and vote for that person, but please put me as the second person, your second choice. And the second choice winner always wins. They don't have to stand for anything, have affiliation.
But again, so much of this, and the reason, for instance, Rob Bishop to me is not my representative. Him talking to Steve on the radio for an hour, that's not a town meeting, okay? Don't even, okay? His funding comes from out of state, and I worked out in the oil field, I had a ball out there. But he works for oil and gas. He's really a lobbyist, not a representative, okay? That's kind of infuriating.
We're gonna have a public comment period.
Okay,
You'll be able
but
to,
just my point being,
Yeah.
if the bulk of voters aren't taught that if they don't go do their homework, and they just look at the cute ads on TV or on the internet and vote based on that. I know my sister voted for Bill Clinton because she thought he was cute, and she has a PhD. That was inexcusable. But the idea is, you should stress that if you want all this stuff to be controlled by money, only the gobs and gobs of voters getting together and saying, we're not going to do it based on the ads. We're going to do it based on the boring, tedious homework that every civilized human being is morally obligated to do. Then you wouldn't have people who are there because they have the most money.
And you're right, because the caucus system has those neighborhood meetings where you get to meet them and talk to them.
okay, let's move on. Well, everybody will have a chance for public comment at the end, okay? Again, so any questions on that plurality in the runoff election? Okay. Okay, so a few key points that we'll emphasize again. This language would implement a direct primary election, which is different than a blanket primary or a jumbo primary like they have in California. And the difference is that the direct primary election process stays within the political parties. It doesn't, for example, in California, just the top vote getters, regardless of party, advance to the general. This keeps that primary election within the parties, so that whoever wins the party's nomination in the primary advances then to the general election ballot as that party's nominee. And again, as I said, we only impact partisan primary elections. which are county elections, legislative, state house, state senate, federal elections, congressional, U.S. Senate, and of course statewide governor, attorney general, and auditor and treasurer. We don't touch the local city races. And again, Utah's political parties will always be free to choose to hold open or closed primary elections. That doesn't impact who can sign to nominate candidates. It is always only the registered party voters who can sign to nominate a candidate of their party where they live in that jurisdiction. Yeah, question?
If this is such a good idea, why doesn't it apply to the nonpartisan races?
Because it already does. Municipal elections already use the direct primary election process. If I'm running for mayor, I can simply go in, file my application for candidacy, pay the filing fee, and then I go on the primary election ballot.
But you don't have to collect signatures and have
No.
support.
No, not right now.
So if
Not-
that's a good idea, why doesn't that apply to those races?
Because partisan primary elections are a little bit different, and all of our surrounding states and most states throughout the country, there seems to be a desire for candidates to demonstrate a level of support within their party in order to be on the party's primary election ballot.
That's why
What number?
The
No, the 1% is that threshold. Right? So to qualify for your party's primary election ballot, you need to demonstrate a sufficient level of support among your party voters, and you do that by collecting at least signatures from at least 1% of your fellow party voters. Question?
Well, it would be a public comment.
Okay, state it please, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, I think a lot of this stuff we've already gone over. Let's see. This is all kind of repeating. Again, the 1% threshold. The 1% threshold is the same for all political parties. This is an important change too. Under SB 54, a voter could only sign to nominate one candidate in any given race. Under this new language, we remove that, and so a voter can sign to nominate more than one candidate in any race.
Sign more than one position?
Yeah. So that way, the idea is that a voter can say, I like this person, I want them to be on the primary, I also like this person, I want them to be on the primary. So you can sign to nominate more than one candidate in any race.
Wait, so the signature gatherers can get your signature more than one time?
For more than one candidate.
So how do you know you only got their signature ones?
That requirement is no longer in place. We removed that requirement.
So how do you count your votes toward your required signatures?
The county clerks count the signatures and verify those.
And they're going to go through every single signature, and they're not sampling?
It depends on the county. That's a good
So
question.
you can just see a whole bunch of names, not know there's duplicate names in this pile, and depending on the county, they're going to sample.
No, it depends on the race, I think. I'm not sure, actually. I think the lieutenant governor's office, when they do statewide and multi-county races, I think they have a sampling procedure. But my understanding is the county clerks verify every single signature, and they look at the voter's signature on the database.
They sample in many counties.
Okay, well, they sample. Yeah. That's under SB 54, yeah. Yeah, question?
I got a question on that. You got 6,514 people for Republican candidates and 1,595 for Democrats.
Yeah.
Why is there a big difference there?
Well, because we'll get there. So these are samples of the 1% statewide. So if you are running or if you are trying to qualify for the Republican Party primary election, then you're running for state governor, you would need to collect 1% of the party's registered voters statewide to qualify for the primary. There's 651,000 registered Republicans in Utah, and so a Republican candidate would need to collect the 6,514 signatures at least. So again, the Democratic Party candidate would need to also collect 1%, and that number is equal to, there's just under 160,000 registered Democrats statewide. So a Democrat would need to get 1,595 signatures.
But the thing of it is, you got two parties, the two main parties of the state.
These are just samples. We it applies to all political parties. So if you are a candidate for the, say, Utah United Party, a relatively new party, I'm not sure how many registered voters they have. 75. So you would need to collect, one signature. It's an equal 1% threshold for all political parties.
So Mike, the part about that though is a whole bunch of companies have just set up in Utah to do signature collection gathering, and they charge per signature, so that's an unfair.
So that's an important point, because the current signature thresholds are, again, they're so high that they would be unconstitutional, right? And so the idea here is that if I'm a serious candidate for governor or for the U.S. Senate, myself and my campaign, I think it's very possible that I could go and collect those 6,500 signatures and not have to pay a signature company to do it for me. If I'm a serious candidate running to represent the entire party statewide, I should be able to go get 6,500 signatures without paying anything.
I know, I'm not saying that that's not a burden, I'm saying it's an unfair expense for the two parties to be unbalanced.
Oh, I disagree. I tried finding those 1,500 Democrats statewide. They're spread out. I mean, it's a 1%. All right, you're fine. You'll have time. But again, it's a 1% threshold, right? I mean, we were in Utah County yesterday, and countywide, you'll see the numbers here, and the Democratic number was much smaller. But again, it's harder to find those Democrats in Utah County. It's a 1% threshold. It's equal for all parties. And again, the idea here is that as a candidate, if I have enough support in my party, I should be able to go do that. And I shouldn't, I can do that without having to pay people to do it for me. So I have access to the ballot, but I have to show that I have some level of support in the party.
But the point is ballot. We don't live in Utah County. We live in Uintah County, where I can go out and find 1% of the Democrats. I mean, that's not a fair statement to say, because we live here and we're considering it here. I can go find those 12 people. And so it is an unfair, it's a real big discrepancy.
And it's 1% for all political parties everywhere. It's even everywhere. All parties.
I get the principle, but it's still disparate.
You'll have a chance to make your comment.
Okay.
Yes, sir, question?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if the county clerk knows who's Democrat and who's Republican, what's to stop him from giving somebody a whole list of all these?
Actually, those lists are available to the public. You can, all candidates can get a
So you
list.
wouldn't have to spend all that money going out hunting Democrats, just get the
Exactly.
list, you know right where they live.
Exactly right, sir, yeah.
So-
And those lists are available to the public, and you can get those from the county clerk, you can give those to the candidates. And again, the idea there is any candidate that has a sufficient level of support, that is a serious candidate, can access the ballot.
Well, let them know I got big dogs.
So here are the signature thresholds, some sample numbers. You'll see those same numbers statewide for a sample congressional district. Right now, the numbers for congressional is 7,000 under this 1% threshold. The number, for example, for congressional, we're looking at about 1,400 signatures for Republican and 464 for a Democrat. We have some sample state Senate districts here. One in Utah County, one in Salt Lake County. We have a couple House districts, one in Washington, one in Salt Lake, and we have Utah County, as I mentioned. So these are some sample numbers. You'll see there that the total of Democrat and Republican voters, that combined total is less than the number of registered voters. And that's, of course, because our second largest group of voters in Utah are unaffiliated voters. And so that's this discrepancy there. Yeah, question?
No, I'm just saying, yay for us.
Oh, maybe, okay, yeah. Okay, so those are some sample signature thresholds. Let's see, okay, a couple key points again, we don't eliminate or prohibit the caucus convention system. There are important functions for parties in that system. This is our fiscal impact statement that was prepared by the Governor's Office of Management and Budget. And so that runoff election, to have that runoff election by mail, we adjusted the election timeline so that candidates could start filing on October 1st. The candidate filing period ends on March 1st. And in there, we have accommodated time for that potential runoff election. So the Lieutenant Governor's Office, along with all the county clerks statewide, they have estimated that the total cost for them to run any election cycle is about $2.9 million statewide for a regular general election cycle. And so,
Can I ask a quick question on
Yeah.
date?
Yep.
So basically, right now, the law starts the day after the legislative session, so that all of those who are incumbent and are elected officials, they can also participate.
what starts the day after the session?
The filing period.
The filing period under
It's like
SB 54
it's in the
is
first week
it's
after.
in November, I believe.
It's-
Yeah, and then the filing period
No.
extends, I think it goes to, I think it's in mid-March.
Oh, no. No.
The candidate filing period. It used to be
No,
at the end of the session,
It is at
but
the
under
session,
SB 54, it was moved up
and
for this
so
candidate signature.
They will not be able to participate while they're serving. During that time,
Participate in what?
they're in preparing for their elections.
They can. The only prohibition is they can't accept campaign donations during the legislative session. But they can still campaign, they can collect signatures, they can do everything else. Well, they're incumbents. They simply can't accept donations during the session under law, but they
Or
can
campaign.
they can
Their
campaign.
campaign the day after the election.
Right, no, but this is a
Let's
45
hold-
days.
let's hold.
They're
Let's-
not allowed to do what every other candidates do.
The only thing they can't do during the session is collect campaign donations. They can collect signatures, they can have their campaign volunteers, family members collecting signatures, doing all of that. There's no prohibition on campaigning. The only prohibition is on taking campaign donations. Okay, so again, back to the election cycle. The state has estimated that any single election cycle they have to run statewide costs about $2.9 million. And so because of, we have that runoff, that potential runoff provision in there, in the case that every primary election statewide would require that runoff. That could cost up to that $2.9 million. And so that's the big chunk of that $3.35 million every 2 years. Also in that is $40,000 for additional primary election administration, $50,000 for additional signature verification, and then this $30,000 amount for additional information published in the voter information handbook. So this, our full fiscal note is available at elections.utah.gov. It's also on the homepage of our website, countmyvoteutah.org. Yeah.
What's the difference between this and current costs?
And the current cost, the 3.35.
Oh, that's-
It could up to cost that more because of that runoff provision. Because in the event, right, that every primary election requires the runoff, then it could cost up to that amount, right? So that's the potential additional amount.
In addition to what's there.
Exactly, yeah, in addition to current, yeah. But again, as they say, candidate and voter behavior may change these estimates. This is kind of a worst case scenario, is the right way to say it. But that is in the event that there's a runoff in every election statewide. That's what it would cost up that much. So they would need to prepare in the budget for that in case, right? So, any questions on the fiscal estimate? Okay. Well, that is the end of the PowerPoint. Our website, countmyvoteutah.org, we have our full legal language there. We also have this hearing presentation is there as well on the homepage of our website, along with, I said, the fiscal impact statement. That is my email address. Certainly welcome to email me if you'd like. Also, for disclosure purposes on the Lieutenant Governor's website, we are registered as a political issues committee. And so if you go to disclosures.utah.gov, you can search for Count My Vote, and that is the name of our PIC, and all of our expenditures and disclosures are reported there. In 2013, our PIC was named something different, Alliance for Good Government, but that was a different initiative, so that's since been closed. The reports are all still available, but for the new initiative, it's just Count My Vote. So you can find all of our campaign finance disclosures are reported there. So, okay, that concludes the presentation. So what we'll do now is David here has a microphone and we have a timer. And again, Jake back here, we have the proceedings on camera, and so this is public record, so you're on the record publicly, it will be posted for public consumption. So keep that in mind. It's helpful if you state your name and where you're from. For your comment, we're also required to collect that information. So I guess we'll just raise your hand, and if you'd like, you can come up front with the microphone, or if you'd like, you can stand where you are. We would ask that you just maybe face the camera, or at least speak to the camera at some point, so we have that on the record first. So, thank you.
All right, you're up.
Hi, I'm Jody Crane, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Utah Republican Party. I'm here from Uintah County. I live across the street. I think one thing that they didn't mention to you is about the candidates. They keep talking a lot about the voters, but not the candidates. The candidates under this do not have to register with the party they want to represent. They only have to designate which party they want to run under. So a Democrat can designate that they want to run as a Republican, and vice versa. They can do that. So the system, the caucus and convention system, that vets the candidate and says that they stick to our platform. Democrats have a platform, Republicans do. There's no way for the parties after this to actually say this person is our rubber stamp candidate. They will just go to the election. We did this system similar to this back in, I think it was 38, 10 years, I think it happened. They say they're doing this because of low voter turnout. There's been a study that has shown that low voter turnout in Utah is because most of the people who are unaffiliated tend to vote in general with the most dominant party in the state. And when you know that everyone's going to vote your way, you don't tend to run out to every single election because you think your odds are pretty good. We definitely have, when we have a close race, like when we had Jim Matheson, we had a lot of close races. And in those close races, we have astronomical voter turnout because our citizens, who a lot of them are conservative, tend to be afraid and want to come out and vote. So it doesn't really, it lasted for 10 years, and under a system like this in Utah, after 10 years, voter turnout was the lowest it had ever been in the state of Utah, and they came back to the caucus and convention system. So that's all I want to say.
All in favor?
2 minutes.
2 minutes, you say? I'm Dwayne Shepard. We have actually in this room two former chairs of the Republican Party for the Uintah County, and also one current chair. And you know, when this actually first came out in 2013, I held a meeting right here in this room. We had about 50 people showed up, and we warned about that the Count My Vote initiative itself was not just after being able to include more people, that it was directly tied to getting rid of the caucus and convention system, so that, or at least their power. Now this, it doesn't eliminate it, but it does eliminate the power. Right now, the convention system, there are things that happen there that are legally binding for the party and for the voters and for that candidate. And so when you vote somebody in there and you need to replace them or whatever you got to do, there are legally binding things that happen in that convention. That would no longer be the case, as demonstrated on their PowerPoint. And that in itself concerns me. And I warned about that 4 years ago. That this is what they're coming after, is the convention system. The caucus convention system is what eliminated Bob Bennett in the senator, and that's what got Senator Lee in. Thank you. And his friend Mike Levitt is the one who put together the Count My Vote system. And that is where it comes from. It is because their candidate, his friend, was not elected or re-elected, and the convention system got him out of that office and brought in Senator Lee. And this is directly tied to that. And you can boil it all down, we can fluff here and there, and up one side and down the other, but that's what it comes down to. So the folks that actually support the system are the folks that have a lot of money that can actually just go out there and throw, you know, here in Uintah County, a normal commission campaign was $1,500. We had a candidate that spent $20,000 on this last time. And that's what we're going to head into statewide. On all these others, is the person that can advertise the most is the person that's going to get elected, because then they'll have their name recognition. And that's what it comes down to. I'll yield my time. Thank you.
It's been great on time so far. It's down to the T. There you go.
Hi, I'm really not here as a party person, but I've served the state for many years in a nonpartisan election. And I'm very fearful for the nonpartisan programs that we have in our state that are so important, that this may complicate what they're trying to do because of the voting process and the cost that's going to go with that. And so I certainly hope as we think about our court judges, our school board members, our other people who are nonpartisan elections, that we consider that as we make political changes so that we don't undo something that's working so well already. And I hope you'll support that.
Maybe these are just questions and I should have asked, but where'd you go? You made a comment that we can sign for more than one candidate, which does not, to me, show that you're committing yourself to, I like them and I like them and I like them, but in a caucus system, we actually go and we vote for that person and then we go to an election and do that. You also mentioned that the candidates demonstrate by gathering signatures their support for a system. And to me, that's the opposite. When you come to a convention with your neighbors in your caucus, that's where you're showing your support to your Democratic, your Republican system there. Gathering signatures does not, to me, as you mentioned, why I'm saying this is I'm concerned the way you're presenting this, that you're saying, well, our candidates go out and gather signatures showing their support for their party. That doesn't make any sense. You go to your convention, your Republican convention, your Democratic convention, you show your loyalty, your commitment to those principles of that party. So the way this is being presented is very disconcerting to me because it seemed opposite of how it really is. Also, you mentioned that the incumbents can't during the 45 days do the electioneering, but you said, well, they can send their family out to their signatures and so forth the time that they can. Which again, to say that out loud, that's not what a candidate should do. They should be before the people. They don't send out people. They don't hire a petition company to go gather signatures. We're just taking this away from the people. Candidates who want to represent the values of a party need to come before the caucus, come before those grassroots, and say that that's what they're doing, not gather petitions, and especially where people can sign up for 2 or 3 or 4 people. I just don't agree with the way this is going, plus what Dwayne said, what Joni said, all the logistics and the ramifications of less voter turnout. The end.
5 seconds left.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Adams. I live here. Does this work?
Yes.
I've lived here for about 30-some years. It was an accident. We left the University of Chicago and came here. I admire Jeff Flake because I grew up Republican. My mom and dad were the head of the South Bay YRs. I remember when Barry Goldwater came over to our house, and I kind of figured he came over to everybody's house. And I remember when we swam in Reagan's pool, and I didn't realize how big the state of California was. But I also did some research on Murray Chotiner, who was another guy who came over to our house. It was dirty politics. The whole Richard Nixon thing was dirty politics. I'm ashamed I'm not a Republican anymore, nor would I ever become a Republican again. Because siding with somebody who, I'm so angry right now. My mom doesn't want to hear about Harvey Weinstein. It's like, Mommy, you never had to go out and make a living, so you didn't endure 3 decades of sexual harassment out in the workforce. We now have a guy in the White House who is despicable. And for Republicans to back this man up is despicable. How we ever got here is beyond me. But if you wonder why there are people here who don't want to be Democrats and don't want to be Republicans and are looking for anything because the Republican Party has had a stranglehold on this state for so long, this is how this is. Not, don't blame it all on Mike Levitt. There are people like me who are furious, and a lot of us are women, and a lot of us are the ones who are balancing this state's budget by working for free or damn near nothing. I take care of a 95-year-old World War II veteran right now. I get $600 a month for that. The day he dies, I have nothing. But we're not heard from. We're the ones who are keeping this all together, while the guys in their suits go to work and get their salaries. But a lot of women are working for free or for nothing. That's why we have a balanced budget. I'm disgusted. Just want you to know.
Anybody else like to comment?
So I have a question.
Yeah.
And I don't know who's going to answer.
Well, there's Taylor, I can also maybe answer as well.
Yeah. What is this going to do for rural counties? How is this going to help rural counties? Because all your population is based on the Wasatch Front in Utah, and I-50, I-50 for it. What's it going to do for rural Utah?
Well, I think any serious
How are we
candidate,
ever going to have a voice in what goes on?
yeah, I think any serious candidate will still travel to any part of the state to gather signatures. And right now, the delegates are portioned out proportionally, but 70% of them still reside in Wasatch's front. You need 60% right now to win the caucus convention system anyway. So if they want, they still have to, they can still gather.
Why would a candidate come to rural Utah gather signatures when he can spend the day in Salt Lake City and get most of it?
I think any serious candidate would want to talk to the voters. And like I said, with the current caucus convention system, 70% of delegates are still in the Wasatch Front anyway. And you have to win 60% of them to win a convention. So you don't necessarily need to go to rural Utah,
Well,
but they
not
still
like a
do.
Senate seat, like a state Senate seat has a rural element, but it also has an urban element. And if they have to only get a designated amount of signatures, why wouldn't they just stay in their urban area and collect them all one day?
Again, I think any serious candidate will come down to rural Utah. I
You
mean,
can't say that.
I think so. I think they will. I think we would have to agree to disagree on this one, but I think they will.
But that's like saying that because they're good people, they'll do it. They'll want to see their people, but that's not true. Like, you have to know that's not a truth.
Well, why do they do it now? They don't have to do it now.
If they do,
No, they don't.
No, they don't. Do it now.
There's no proportional requirement under the caucus convention system.
They won't get the votes, they're delegates.
There.
But they don't have to get those votes from rural Utah. They come anyway because
Wait a
they're
second, in
candidate.
a Senate race in the Utah Republican Party, if you're in a multi-district race, you do need the votes of the
Is there
delegates
a geographic
representing.
proportion requirement right now to be nominated in the Republican or Democratic Party?
Your delegates from each geographic location. do
There
need to
isn't a
vote.
geographic distribution requirement now. So the argument
But
that,
they
the argument
can't
that a
do
direct
it.
primary would somehow disenfranchise rural Utah, it's disingenuous because there is no geographic distribution requirement right now. There isn't. So that is a red herring. It's not, it's
No,
not.
there's no requirement, but you know they can't get elected.
Well, but like he's saying, the same thing. In a primary, they're not going to be elected if they don't come here. Exactly.
A good candidate will go everywhere. Yeah.
So, but, yeah.
I think, look, I think it's a fair concern, but I'm just saying there is no geographic distribution requirement now. So this won't change that. That's the point. So, anyway, okay, sorry, moving on to more comments.
I've got a question. When you say gathering signatures, are you talking actual signatures?
Yes.
Or are you talking response to an email?
That's not allowed. That's not permitted under Utah law. They have to be
Like I
physical.
say, if you've got voters that have an email attached, you can sit in the office and contact all those other parties that candidate or.
It's a physical.
Yeah,
Without
it
sitting down.
has to be a physical signature.
To get the signature.
Yeah, has to be a physical in-person signature.
By Utah resident.
Yeah, by Utah resident, and there's all the requirements associated with that. For the gatherer is the witness and so on.
So are they going to be following the rules on signature gathering this time? Because I know last time they were required to have somebody with every petition, and instead we found them sitting on a counter in 7-Eleven unattended here. And then they were in movie theaters getting people to sign, and they were misrepresenting what people were signing.
Yeah, I certainly never knew of that happening, and we would make sure that never happened.
Like, is there a class?
Yeah.
We all
Okay, we do have, we're under time constraints, so if you want to make a comment, that's great.
I have a question.
Okay, yeah.
So is there, like, for the people that have to go gather the signatures, is there going to be a class? Like, do they have to have a card that's like, yes, I took 2 hours of this class and I know how to do it properly and what to say?
There's not the law doesn't require that kind of class now. No. But they do have to be a Utah resident, 18 or older, and they have to sign and certify as a witness to those signatures for each packet. So, okay, let's move on to comments.
I think we're, comments, you have a comment or a question?
You're promoting this because you say it involves more people, but I guess maybe I'm a little thick, but I can't see how it's going to involve more people. If you don't have a caucus, the people just sat at home, how are they going to get involved? To say they have to go get their signature, that doesn't mean they're involved. I think when you have a caucus, then you're talking up, we're having a meeting, people come if you're a Republican, or people come if you're a Democrat, and that encourages people to come to the meeting and be involved in it. This other way, it doesn't seem like the meeting involves anybody much. I mean, maybe I'm thick-headed, but I can't see how it's going to involve more people, and that's what you're promoting this on.
I feel the same way. I think this is going to cause a distraction. It's going to be a secondary distraction that people are going to be fed up with.
I do
Because
too.
you're going to have so many more candidates are going to say, what the heck is going on, and not even turn out. And it's going to end up just like what she said, you're going to have the lowest turnout, and it's going to completely ruin what's working. Even though it might not be the best, it's going to completely ruin what's working.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Do we have any more public comments?
Final comments?
Can we ask how many people turned out at your other public meetings?
Probably
Let's see, we had about 15 in Logan. We had probably about 30 or 40 at Lemoore Library in Cotton Heights. Probably about 20, 30 in Orem.
Yeah,
And last night in Ephraim, then we had 4. So we leave here and go to Price, and our Heritage Price for 3 at USU Eastern Campus, and then we have our final hearing, well, I guess our 7th hearing at SUU in Cedar City tonight. at 8.
How many people are, I know you don't know exactly the number, but how much support or not support are you getting at these meetings?
Oh, I don't know, I'd say it's fairly split, but I will, it just depends on the location. It varies. Obviously, the support here is overwhelming, so that was a joke. You can laugh. It's not, I would say, all but Whitmore, I'd say it was probably 75% against. Whitmore was probably more 75% for. So, and of course, here is, I'd say, 99% against.
But
Do we have any takers?
there's a problem you're trying to address, or you wouldn't waste your time on this. Why don't you summarize the problem?
Well, we have a gentleman with a comment first. I want to give him this time.
Okay, from what I understand, I just feel like this is unconstitutional because it takes away, I don't see a person coming to my house to get my signature, and that's unconstitutional. I won't be able to vote, literally. My voice will not be heard. So I don't, at the caucus, I'm able to go there, I'm able to put my opinion in, I'm able to hear other people. I'm a county delegate, so I got to talk to people and stuff like that. I don't find this in any way helpful. So that's just my
Okay, sorry. Richard Rust, and
that works.
yeah, it works. I came against it today. I'm open. I want you to know I'm looking at it. Here's why. I remember the first time I went to my caucus. It was in Salt Lake. It was in the downtown West Valley, and 5 people showed up. And it represented a huge area, a lot of people. And I was voted in as the precinct chair. It was my first experience, and didn't know anything about precincts and things, so I got involved in the county, in Salt Lake County. But I remember there was one man there, he didn't want to be there. He was only there because a friend said, I need a vote. And so what he did is he sent someone to every single precinct to get a vote. Well, that wasn't representing the people either. And so I don't know the answer. I don't. I want to look, because I don't know that the precincts have worked either. Now here, it's different. In my precinct, we've had a lot of turnout. However, I will tell you this, when I'm not a delegate, I don't get talked to. So it's the same thing. That's what I'm saying. When I'm not a delegate, no one comes to me. And so kind of the same thing. I don't know the answer, but I wonder if we need to. I don't know. So I'll just stay with that.
Anyone else who wants to make a public comment?
Can we have 2 turns? Is she taking one?
We don't have time for that, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No more public comments? Okay. Well, thank you for coming, everyone. Really appreciate you being here, appreciate your comments. They will be posted online. We'll go ahead and end the formal hearing there. Certainly, you know, we're going to say we're cleaning up and you need to get on the road, but happy to chat and answer any questions or talk here as we clean up and everything. So thanks again for coming. We probably need to be out of the room here pretty quickly, I think, right? No, we're good? Okay, perfect. We'll clean up and happy to talk as we clean up. Thank you.
You have more time.